Welcome to the Real View podcast, where Ohio Realtors connect you to innovators and influencers, keeping you with the real view of real estate. Whether you're a broker, agent, first-time homebuyer, industry leader, or just happen to stumble upon our podcast today, you can expect to hear tips, tools, tricks, interesting information, and so much more from the experts in Ohio's real estate game. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Real View podcast. I'm your host, Allison Wiley. Joining me today, our special guest is Brandon Cobb. He is CEO of HBG Capital. He is an expert in real estate consulting, and he is an investor himself. He's been featured in REI, Wealth Magazine, and Forbes. Brandon is the owner and partner of HBG Capital, a vertically integrated real estate firm providing investors with superior risk-adjusted returns and downside principal protection backed by real estate assets in the residential single-family construction sector in Nashville, Tennessee. Brandon, welcome onto the show. We're so happy to have you.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And we are going to dive right into real estate investing, why it's such a great option, how to work with land, what we should be doing as realtors to really take advantage of this opportunity. And we're going to hear a lot from Brandon's experience and what you've learned from doing this and making it, kind of your life's work. But before we get started in all of that, I would like to hear a little bit more about you. Could you tell us about yourself, how you got started in real estate, and talk to us about your company now?
Yeah, so I'm what you would probably call an accidental entrepreneur. I did not have any dreams or aspirations to invent new communities, so that's kind of cool. Today we get to take raw land and put new communities on it or get it approved for new communities. And if you told me we'd be doing that 11 years ago, I'd have looked at you like you had 11 heads, because I loved what I did. I was in medical sales, so young kid in his early 20s, getting to wear scrubs every single day to the work. I thought I was the coolest kid on the block, getting to hang out with orthopedic surgeons all day, getting to be in hospital rooms, doing OR surgery related stuff. I remember being very intrinsically motivated. Like I was selling something I believed in because it was helping patients, right? So that was pretty cool. So I really liked what I was selling. I loved what I did, and I did not have any motivations to go out and do something different. Real estate wasn't even a thought. And then one sunny Friday afternoon, I was having one of the best days I could possibly have as a sales rep. Like the days where you're like, I want to tell my boss and tell him how excited I am about hitting sales and tell him how much money I made him. And he was like, hey, meet me at the Starbucks over in West End. And so I pull up in my car. I was driving like a RAV4 at the time. It was sunny. It was June. I could smell the coffee, and I pull up a chair, excited to give him the great news. And he fires me. And that was that. Just like that, my cozy corporate career in medical device sales was over. And I remember that day, all I could think about over and over and over again was, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Like, what did I do wrong? Because I loved my job. I put blood, sweat, and tears. My boss was like a mentor to me. He was the one that gave me the shot to break into that career. So he was like a father figure. So I totally felt like I was being abandoned. And it's anybody's ever lost like a career before. It's not just losing a job. You're losing your sense of identity, because I had my whole sense of identity like wrapped up in that job. So it's a very big deal for me. So that's what started my whole entrepreneur journey. I was kind of forced into it. So I started a course on how to break into medical device sales. I thought, well, a lot of people have reached out to me over the years to figure out how I did it. And, I spent a lot of time figuring it out. Maybe I can sell that. That failed. I said, I really like all the online motivational stuff. I know what I'll do. I'll write an online motivational blog. That failed. And then I said, I got it. I love Tony Robbins. I love all his stuff. I'm going to be a life coach like him. And it turns out, Allison, you're not going to believe this, but not many people want to take life coaching advice from a 26-year-old.
Right.
So that business failed. But then I discovered this amazing vehicle, as you know, and I'm sure a lot of people listening here know, called real estate. And at first I made all the mistakes. Like I sold all my retirement accounts to fund my first real estate deal, paid the taxes, which, by the way, this is not investing advice. Like, don't do what I did. Like, that was an idiotic mistake. I did not know you could use a 401k to invest in real estate. So learned that the hard way. But made all those mistakes. I racked up like $98,000 of credit card debt trying to figure out how to rehab and flip houses. I lost 40 grand on my first new build on my own money. I mean, I made all the mistakes, but over the years, I did over 186 transactions. I can't even tell you how many millions, 40, $50 million in real estate. And I learned a way. And we started flipping houses. Then we started building houses. We had a need to grow and scale the number of houses we were building. So we started going after, instead of one Z, two Z little individual lots, we started going after larger pieces of land where we could put whole neighborhoods on it. And I remember when, everything changed. We're getting ready to go vertical on a development and build the homes. And we got a knock on the door from one of these national home builders. You've heard of them. And they said, "Hey, we really like your land. We want to buy it." And we're like, "Sorry, it's not for sale." And they said, "Well, here's a purchase sell agreement. Are you sure?" And we're like, we looked at the contract. My partner looked at me. We looked back at the contract and we said, "Yes, it's for sale. You can have it. And do you want the one across the street too? Like, we'll do that one too." And so that's how we got into doing land entitlement and development. We came at it from first being house flippers and then new construction builders. And then, now we do the development. So we'll build again. We're not giving that up. But right now, we're working with these big national builders that have unlimited funds and can buy as an unlimited amount of land from us. And I tell that story because people think inventing new neighborhoods. Oh my gosh, I'll never do that. I came from medical sales, healthcare, right? Like if I can figure this out, you can too.
Absolutely. And the beauty of this is that, it's not a foreign concept to our realtors and to people that may be listening to this. We were very familiar with how it works, but maybe not so much on the land side. But I feel like that's such a huge opportunity, especially for here in Ohio. Like we have so much land and there's so many opportunities for it. And that's why I think this could be a really great option, for our people listening, for our realtors listening, and for those consumers who are out there listening in this. I feel like it's a great opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity here in Ohio, so I think that's really exciting. You talk about too that discovering your why, kind of through what you did, through what you've been through. Tell us a little bit about how you found that. How did you discover your why through this, and how that's kind of been a big part of why you do what you do.
So my why is to create as many unforgettable experiences with those that I love and that are close to me. To me, life is a game of experiences. It's not who can die with the most money. It's who can die with the most fruitful, fulfilling experiences. And so for me, that is, I do a sibling trip every year with my brother and sister. We've been doing it for, gosh, has it been 15 years? Every year we go somewhere on their bucket list, right? We just got back from Yosemite back in October. Amazing 4-day trip out there. We do an annual mom-son trip every single year. She's a history teacher, retired history teacher. So she taught history for over 30 years. And we'll take her to places that she's never been able to afford to go to in the past because, raising kids, school teacher, not making tons of money. But it's cool. Like we went to San Antonio, we did the Alamo. We're going to go to Boston this year doing the Freedom Trail. I've taken her to Charleston. Like it's just cool for her to go and relive the things she's taught about for decades. So I do that. I do a father-son trip. He's obsessed with bourbon and crypto. So we go to a crypto conference or like the Kentucky Bourbon Trail or the Whiskey Trail in like Tennessee. So, and my wife and I were travel junkies. We did 2 weeks in New Zealand and Europe. And so like that to me is like why I do the things that I do. The business is just a tool to create the life that I want to create. And so for me, I'm trying to create as many memories early on because the earlier on you create the memory, the more it pays dividends throughout your life and the further the money goes. So I'll give you kind of an example. Like I went to Europe for $3,500 10 years ago. $3,500 went way further creating that experience because if I'm 80 and I spend $1 million on a private yacht to take me to Europe and I get, handheld through all the things, the $1 million just doesn't have the same return on investment, even though it's a lot more money as the $3,500 did in my early 20s.
Yep.
So I'm focused on building those unique experiences that I can carry with me through my entire life. That's my why.
And that's what's so great about this is because a lot of it can be done in that passive way, right? So that it's allowing you to have more free time. It's allowing you to travel and spend time with those you love and really be present in those ways because this is has the ability to kind of run on its own. Is that right with that?
Yeah, I'm still involved. Like land development's a lifestyle business. I'm not going to come here and say like I can just go travel for a year and not even make any phone calls and my business runs with that. No, I'm still very involved in the business, but I like this business because like I don't need a huge team with overhead, right? When we were vertically integrated and had our own GC firm and our own, land acquisitions firm and we've got HPG Capital, which is our capital raising firm. Like it was a lot, specifically the GC firm. If I'm being honest, like that is a whole lot. But we learned a lot from that. We're no longer vertically integrated. We hire strategic partners, so like I can outsource most of the big stuff and not have to have a huge team. Right? There are contractors that can do the entire development. A plus contractors, like a plus opportunities attract A plus type of players. And so I can outsource that. I can outsource the civil engineering. They're going to do all that kind of stuff. I've got people that bring me land opportunities because they know what we do. So that's what I really like about it. I went from having a bunch of employees to lots of overhead to a lot less overhead and like more of just a lifestyle business that I enjoy.
Yeah, no, that sounds amazing, and you're right. It's a lot easier to manage when there's not all that extra overhead and people, to make sure they're doing what they need to be doing. Do you have a favorite development or project that you've worked on? I know probably there's so many, but is there one that really sticks out to you that you're like that was really cool, or I want to do that again, or what's kind of been some cool projects that you've really enjoyed working on and that you're really proud of?
Oh man, like we've built houses, we've created new communities. There was a row of houses that we did in the Dillard Hills community that I really liked. I liked how those turned out. Like those were probably the homes where I'm like, kind of really want to live in one of these houses. So that was one that stands out. I thought those homes turned out really, really nice and just really added to the neighborhood. You know what I mean? That's exciting when like people most of the time people are like, oh, development, and they're there's NIMBYs not in my backyard, and they just hate developers or all the houses they're building are so cheap and yada yada. Very few where you're like, man, the feedback we're getting is great. People love this. And so that was one of those that we got some really good feedback, and I think like made the neighborhood even better. And it's just rare because people want to complain about development, new construction. So I really like that one.
Yeah, I know. And you're right. It does get such a bad rap sometimes, which is unfortunate because it really can transform communities. It can enhance so much of, the area around you. And it's not all a bad thing. And I wish sometimes that there could be some more open mindedness around it and that bad rep, doesn't exist as much as it does. So I love it. That's really cool. How do you determine, when you're looking at developments or projects or investments, what's kind of your method of evaluating that? How do you know when something's good to move forward on, that's intriguing to you that you want to do? What's your evaluation of that? And what are some of the things that you think about when you want to work on a new project?
Yes, I know a lot of your listeners are real estate agents, so I'm going to kind of paint this in the real estate agent light. So you could take a $500,000 listing and it might be a $2.5 million listing if you know how to do this right. So here's what we look for first. I'm going to kind of take you through the process and then show you what to look at. So we've got our own little mastermind community called the Land Development Accelerator. We teach how to do this stuff. And so if you're somebody who is trying to get into development, you're just not sure, how to get started, we've got a free course called learnlanddevelopment.com. So go grab the free course there. Everything I'm about to say, so don't feel like if you're driving, don't feel like you got to write it down. Like it's at that course. So just you go to that website. It's free. We'll go over all this there. But we put the land under contract and we get a concept plan done. That concept plan, we then take it to the city. And if you're in a major metropolis area, you're going to go to the council person that's over that particular district that it's in. If you're in a suburb, you're going to go to the planning director and you're going to say, hey, do you really like this concept plan? Or maybe you want some changes or stuff, and you get something that they like and they're excited about. And then you take that concept plan to your buyers list, agents in this case, these are going to be like probably your big national home builders, right? Lennar, D.R. Horton, and say, hey, I got a client that has this piece of land that the city's excited and move forward with develop. Do you want to buy it? And they go, heck yeah, here's a contract and deposit. And that's your permission to start taking it through. So what are you looking for as a real estate agent if you have a client that maybe has some land and you're wondering, can this be developable? Well, the first thing that you're looking for is sewer access. This is very easy. If you just go pull up the GIS parcel map viewer, or everybody has some kind of county or city website where you can see the parcel viewers, all the little puzzle pieces fitting together in a giant puzzle on your screen. If you've got a development nearby, there's density, right? We're talking about maybe 15,000 or less square foot lots, and it's down the street or close by. That's an indication that there's sewer nearby. The only way to get density is you got to have the sewer access there. Another thing is you can just submit a request to your local utility department and ask for the sewer maps. So for whoever's in charge of the sewer and water, just say, hey, can I get the sewer maps for this parcel? And they'll show you how far away the connecting sewer is. So as long as it's not too far, or it could even be, half a mile, quarter mile, as long as the numbers work, you can run the sewer to it. But that's going to give you your density. Okay. That's the number one thing that we look for. And then the other thing is is there development in the area? So all we do is reverse engineer what our buyers want. So big national builders, we know that they want, at least 50, 60 units on the parcel. There's got to be good absorption rates. Are they already building in the area? They've already done the homework. So we go take a map. If you Google Lennar, Nashville, Tennessee neighborhoods, or D.R. Horton, Nashville, Tennessee neighborhoods, you'll get a map that comes up when you click the link, and it shows you where they're already building. So you want to see some kind of development in the area where buyers are actually going to buy it. So those are the biggest thing. Are is there development in the area? Are buyers buying? And two, is there sewer access nearby?
Yeah, all important. Need to have all of that. That's a really great way to kind of get started, and then you have a really solid roadmap for finding the perfect project that works for you. I think that's super smart. So we found a really great spot. It has all of those three things. You mentioned talking a lot about partnering with those national builders. What's your advice for ways that we can start working with them, that relationship can really grow and be strong, and it becomes a great partner to us? How have you managed that, and what bits of advice would you have for us if we want to start bridging that gap with those big national builders?
Yeah, the first is to meet with them and just get their buy box, right? If you are going to be representing people who have land, if you're an agent, or maybe you want to invest in land and flip it to them and make some money, it starts with identifying, what their buy box is. And so just go meet with the sales reps. The sales reps want to meet with you. They just want the commission. You and the sales rep are on the same team. They just want to get the commission from the sale. So they're going to give you the best possible deal. It's not their money. Remember, right? They're working with you to try to get you the best possible deal. So just go meet with them, put a name with a face. This is a relationship business because you're going to want some feedback from them when you do actually have an opportunity. So that's important to be able to have that relationship, to be able to reach out and say, hey, well, what would you pay per unit? What are you seeing for development costs on your development, stuff like that. This is going to help you backtrack into what the value of the land would be if you did get it approved for a neighborhood. And as a listing agent, we're talking about a lot more zeros on the end of your commission check if there is a piece of land that has development potential.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's such a great partnership to start building. And when we talk about referrals, I'm like, there you go. Like, you work with one, that opportunity, that door is open. That's such a great way, to really have a great pipeline for your business and for growing that. I think that's really smart and really great. What are you seeing in the future of neighborhood design? I always just talk about, if you have the crystal ball in front of you, what does it tell you about the future of neighborhoods? What trends are you seeing? What are people wanting? What are these builders building? What's the future of neighborhood design? And tell us maybe some cool trends that you're seeing or experiencing.
So, the smart home stuff is definitely taken off, right? So being energy efficient. used to, we didn't have to get these blow tests done in houses where they hook a machine up and blow the house and see, like, does it stay pressurized or does that pressure dissipate out, right? So more green, economic friendly. That's a really big trend that we're seeing in homes. The smart home tech. Everybody wants the smart home tech. That stuff's really, really cool. The big trend right now is affordability. Right now, if you were to go Google cost of home ownership versus renting historical chart, go look at the chart. There's two lines, which is like the average mortgage compared with the average rent. And like last year, when interest rates kind of reached their peak of like 6.97%, that gap between renting and owning was the highest it had ever been in history. I mean, it was crazy how much more it cost to own a house versus rent. And so you can actually see the times where it made sense to rent versus own. So affordability is a big, big, big driving factor. And so you're not going to get all that cool tech, that discretionary spend in the houses when affordability is driving that. So how do you get the affordability? Smaller lots. When a developer can create more homes on the same amount of land, he doesn't need to sell them for as much money. So you're seeing a lot more density. You're seeing these developments where everybody wants a one-stop shop, right? They want the daycare down the street, the gas station on the corner, the pool house that they've got. They just want the convenience and not have to go anywhere. So you're going to see a lot of that going on. That's been a trend that I've seen. And then another trend that I've seen is people are really, one unique thing that's come out recently, the government's trying to get creative on like the affordable housing thing because it's such a sticking point for Americans. So one of the things that we've seen is the government will actually give free money to the developer to do the development if they meet certain criteria. So that's free money, which means the cost of the homes can come down. The government will put a bond on the project. So that free money is not free, it has to get paid back. But what they'll do is they'll set something up similar to an HOA, where you might have a monthly HOA fee. Well, you have this monthly bond payment that acts like an HOA, and it's spread out over the course of 20 years or something like that. So it's not a whole lot of money per month that the homeowner has to pay. But what's happened is they've taken that cost to develop, reduced it, reduced the home prices, and then that bond gets paid back by all the homeowners over a very long period of time. So that's a very creative way that the government has something they've done to help reduce the cost, which reduce the cost of the project. So we've seen that as well. So the government has been giving grants to certain affordable housing. If you keep the rents under a certain amount, the home prices of the homes under a certain amount. So affordability is a big, big, big driver. The other big trend, these neighborhoods that are taking off are the 55 and up, like they call them independent active adult living. It's not where you need there's phases. So 55 and up is 55 and up, active adult, right? You're kind of enjoying retirement. You're still able to do things. That has really taken off. All the big nationals, all those communities are selling out like wildfire because they got all the money. It's the baby boomers right now. And then after that, we're seeing trends in the the assisted living facilities. So you're still on your own, but you might need some help, assisted living. And then there's the next step, which is memory care and stuff like that. That asset class, those are going to do well because you've got a huge portion of the population that is now in retirement phase, the baby boomers. So those are some things that we're seeing.
That's so true, and especially about like those, older, 55 and older, those retirement homes, things like that. Americans are aging and living later more than they ever have before. That population is just going to keep growing. They're selling their homes and looking for new places to live, which is great. That's helping with the inventory crunch that we've, been under for the past couple of years now. And you mentioned, those walkable communities. And I think you're seeing that in some of those communities too, where you have your coffee shop, your yoga studio, your park, you have all of that within a couple blocks of your home. All stuff, that walkable living is, I think, only going to get more and more popular as we see gas prices now at $4 a gallon. Everyone's like, I don't want to drive anymore. Get rid of my car. All of that. I think those are such important trends, and the affordability of it too, right? That's so important. So I love that you touched on that, and that's something that the government's listening to and seeing, and that developers and builders are using and taking advantage of, because I think we have so much work to do in the affordable housing sector, and so that's encouraging to hear that there is a little bit of progress being made and that people are taking advantage of some of the ways to do that. So that's all really exciting to hear. Brandon, before we wrap up today, I'd like to know your best bit of advice for realtors, for consumers who want to start getting involved in this today. What advice do you have from us, for us? How can we start this process right now? Give us your best bit of advice for us before we wrap up here today.
Yeah, so like if you're a real estate agent that wants to learn more about this, again, I mean this it's a shameless plug, but again, like seeing is believing. The course at learnlanddevelopment.com, it's free. I've got interviews with civil engineers, national home builders, private equity companies that want to fund your land stuff. There's 3 hours of content just on learning like what the entitlement process is, how to do due diligence on the land, how to find the land. Like, we cut it up into bits and pieces where a 3-year-old can understand it. So it's a great way to go get started in it. But if you are wanting to do one of these actual deals, you've got to partner with somebody that has like the experience, or pay a mentor, to help guide you, or join a community of other people that are doing it so that you can get guidance. Like, this is not something you want to do yourself. As a real estate agent, you can put a lot of sweat equity into things, right? This is, you're going to have to spend some money on these projects, and you don't want to burn money that is, God bless, very, very sacred, right? We work very hard for those dollars. So this isn't something that you want to fumble around and figure out, on your own. So partner with somebody on it, pay a mentor, or join a community of people that are get guidance. That's why we created the Land Development Accelerator. It's a community of builders, land flippers, house flippers, wholesalers, people who are wanting to get into development and do their first development project, but they like the idea of getting their hand held along the way so they don't make mistakes. So, if you want to learn more about that, if you like the free stuff at learnlanddevelopment.com, there's a video on the same website that talks about our community, and you can book a call to learn more if you like what you hear about that video.
I love it. So many opportunities out there. I think there's a huge advantage to doing this, making it a part of your business strategy. I think there's really great things, and you can be a part of designing new communities. And I think that's a really cool thing about it, is you can kind of create what the future looks like as to how we're going to live, work, and play. So really exciting, really awesome stuff, Brandon. I want to thank you so much for joining me, for sharing all your wealth of knowledge. Thank you for your time, for sharing everything with us, and congrats on such an amazing career so far.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it.
And to all of our listeners, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be with you next week. Talk to you then.
Thank you for listening to The Real View. That wraps up today's episode. You can keep up with the latest on the podcast at ohiorealtors.org/therealview and on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Have questions, comments, or suggestions? We want to hear from you. Email us at podcast@ohiorealtors.org. We'll see you next time.